Okay, so today we're diving into something a little different. Uh, it's a welcome message, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, from Learn English Speaking, this program that promises to be your quick guide to what really matters for speaking English better.
Hmm.
And I thought it'd be interesting to kind of break this down, and see what it tells us about actually getting to that point, speaking with confidence.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people can relate to that, that feeling of wanting to speak better, but not really knowing where to start.
Right, exactly. So let's jump right in. What struck you as, kind of went through this welcome message?
Well, I mean, the first thing that jumped out at me was just how direct it is.
Yeah.
It highlights these three key things right off the bat: practical tips, pronunciation improvement, and building your confidence.
Yeah, no fluff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that tells you a lot about their focus right away. It's not just about theory, it's about actually getting you to speak.
Totally. And that idea of practical tips, that's what really stood out to me too. Like, okay, we're not just talking about grammar drills here, right?
Right.
We're talking about getting advice you can actually use like right away.
Exactly. Yeah, like knowing what to say in specific situations.
Yeah, like when you meet someone for the first time.
Exactly. And I think what's key here is that they're leading with practicality. A lot of learners get bogged down in grammar rules and things like that.
Well, yeah.
But being able to say even a few phrases confidently in real world situations, that's huge. That provides a powerful boost.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you said, it reinforces that learning, in a way that just theoretical knowledge doesn't.
Exactly.
And then they go on to pronunciation, which, makes total sense. It's not enough to know the words if people can't understand you, right? And
Absolutely.
the fact that they specifically mention this shows they get it. They know it's a major hurdle for a lot of learners.
Yeah, and clear pronunciation, it's not just about being understood. It significantly impacts your confidence, too.
Oh, for sure.
When you know you're being understood, you're naturally more likely to speak up.
It's a snowball effect.
Exactly. It's a really positive cycle.
And that brings us to confidence, which I thought was so interesting that they put it right up there with, practical skills and pronunciation.
Yeah.
It really highlights that language learning isn't just, an intellectual exercise.
Hmm.
It's also about how you feel about speaking.
Absolutely. And you can see how these three pillars, these practical tips, pronunciation and confidence, they're all connected,
Oh, yeah.
right? Clearer pronunciation leads to more successful interactions, which then builds your confidence, which motivates you to seek out more practical tips and so on.
It all feeds into itself. Yeah, and the welcome message also mentions subscribing for new lessons.
Right.
And while that's pretty standard for online learning, it does reinforce this idea that consistent engagement is key.
Oh, for sure.
It's not a sprint, this language learning thing.
That's more like a marathon.
Yeah, exactly. And the way they sign off, let's start speaking English with ease. That word ease, it's so inviting.
Yeah.
It takes away that feeling of it being this huge impossible task.
It suggests their approach is all about making speaking feel more natural, less like a struggle.
Right, right.
And I think that ties back into providing those practical tools and building your self-assurance.
Exactly. So if we had to boil it all down, what do you think this welcome message is really telling us about becoming a better English speaker?
Well, I think it's saying that it involves getting your hands on useful real-world advice, making sure your pronunciation is clear,
Mm-hmm.
and, crucially, believing in your ability to speak.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's all about taking action and having that confidence.
Exactly. And the welcome message really sets the stage for a learning experience that's helpful and encouraging.
Yeah, it really does. So thinking about all this, this emphasis on speaking English with ease, what specific challenges do you find most difficult when you're trying to speak English?
That's a good question.
And what kind of practical tips do you think would be most helpful for you to overcome those?
It really makes you think about how actively seeking out those strategies and consciously nurturing your confidence could make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's not just about passively absorbing information.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of your learning journey
Well said.
and making it your own.
Absolutely. All right, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but hopefully this has given you some food for thought
Definitely.
and some actionable steps to take on your own English speaking journey.
Absolutely. And remember, the most important thing is to keep practicing and keep believing in yourself.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us today.
It was my pleasure.
And until next time, happy learning.
Bye.